Eric, thank you so much for being on the program. I know that we've learned so much in the last few hours about this, and I want to get to that. But something that nobody is doing and that isn't done enough is eulogizing Charlie as somebody
Yeah.
who traveled the country with him, as somebody who knows him like a brother. I want to just give you the floor and give you an opportunity to speak to everyone about who Charlie was and what message his life brought to the world.
So rewind 10 years, Benny. He comes into Trump Tower. I'll never forget this. We're sitting in a conference room on the 25th floor of Trump Tower, and he's this, I don't know, a 21-year-old kid. And he comes up to me and he goes, "This is what I want to do on college campuses. This is how I want to be involved in the campaign." And I go, these are really incredible, aspirations and lofty goals, but you really think you can create a chapter on every college campus and fully change the narrative? And he goes, "Yeah, I can. I absolutely can." And he just got going. He had a couple of chapters, but the chapters are small, and there was energy. He had a lot of energy behind it. But he literally spelled out exactly what Turning Point USA is right now. He spelled out the exact movement that he created, which you best saw 5 seconds before he was assassinated by this jerk, right? When you saw those kids out there and they're waving their hats and they're pumping their fists in the air and they're so excited to see him and the energy is contagious and they're all wearing 47 hats and they're throwing hats to the crowd and they're having a great time. I mean, this was a rally on a college campus, and that is what he told me he wanted to create 10 years ago. And listen, you hear a lot of nonsense, especially in the business world, from people. "Oh, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to build." And 99% of the time it's bravado and BS. The people can't execute. They can't build. They lose their will. They lose their passion. Charlie not only built, but exceeded that goal. And I love him. Listen, when I saw Cash Patel speak, and Cash is a dear friend of mine. I mean, a dear friend of mine. When I saw Cash, and by the way, so is Dan Bongino. When I saw him speak a couple minutes ago, it was like, if you want to ever talk about full circle in life, almost brought tears to my eyes. The amount of stages that you, me, Cash, and Charlie have been on, and by the way, Dan Bongino, right? Like, over the course of our life. So here's a dear friend of ours who was one of the biggest impetus in helping my father win the White House and just standing by our side relentlessly. If we were in a courthouse, if we were getting attacked by an AG, Charlie was there and he was fighting and he was vocal. And so he lost his life in support of a movement that my father started, but obviously his beliefs and what he cared about, right? God, our Constitution, America, red, white, and blue. So I'm seeing a friend here that I've been on stage with 1,000 times. I'm seeing another dear friend that's been on the same stage as Charlie and I and you, up there as FBI director, who's trying to hold it together as he's piecing together the timeline of how he found his buddy's killer. And now Cash runs the FBI, and then you see Bongino, who again was a friend of Charlie's and a friend of mine and a friend of yours. And you want to just talk about this weird small world. Like, you never thought that this is how, at least I never thought, and it didn't hit me until 2 seconds ago, that this is how the United States worked. Normally you had some freaking bureaucrat who wore some suit, who carried some freaking revolver, who was a political, who didn't give a crap about the other, the person at the end of that rifle barrel. And yet you see all these worlds of heart and soul collide, where it's just, we're all fighting for the same thing. We're fighting for country. We're fighting for what Charlie believed in. We're fighting for friendship. It's so damn real. It's so damn raw. It's so uniquely personal to all of us, based on how well you and I and all of us know these characters and the fight that we've been in this entire time. And man, it's crazy. I mean, you couldn't write this in a book. You really couldn't.
I know you have some breaking news, and so I want to get to that. You do have a new book out, and my producers are telling me that you want to announce something about your new book, and you've been on a book tour, and you want to take this moment to break news about something that you've decided about your book that details, I'm sure Charlie's in it, that details your relationship with your father in the last few years in your front seat to this American moment. Please, Eric, the floor is yours.
So, Benny, I started working on this 3 years ago. I started working on it before Butler. It was after they tried to impeach my father twice. The Russia hoax that I was at the center of, because I was the one that was getting the call from the old FBI saying, "Hey, I hear you have secret servers in the basement of Trump Tower," right? Then they tried to gag my father. They got rid of his freedom of speech. They took him off of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. They took him off the ballot of Maine and Colorado. They went after our Supreme Court justices. They raided, our home. They raided Mar-a-Lago. I became the most subpoenaed person in American history. I got 112 subpoenas in a short period of time. They tried to lock my father up. They tried to imprison all of us. They tried to bankrupt our family. And I started working on this book called Under Siege, right? And I named the book Before Butler, Pennsylvania, right? It's what they wanted to do. They wanted to kill us in any way possible. They wanted to kill my father. They wanted to eliminate our family. They wanted to strip his voice. They wanted to bankrupt us, right? And they would do anything to get to that goal. They wanted to make sure the Make America Great Again movement was dead and it was quashed and its leader was gone and the children of the leader were imprisoned and hated each other and had no voice and had no money and we were extinguished forever. And that's how I came up with Under Siege. And then something happened, and it's called Butler, Pennsylvania, where they tried to extinguish my father's life on that stage, and by the grace of God, they didn't succeed. And then 2 months later, they tried to kill him again at a golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida, a course I run every single day. And every single day, the title Under Siege became more fitting as to what the radical left lunatics were trying to do to our family, what the movement that we created, and it's a movement of good. It's exactly what Charlie epitomized. And I launched it on literally Wednesday of this week. I announced this book. And you better believe New York Times and everybody's going to do everything they can to quash what I'm trying to do because it is so raw and so damn powerful. And I do not hold back. And I give every inside story about the corruption. And then 2 days later, literally 2 days later after I announced this book, we're all watching. And we see exactly what happened to Charlie. That is us being under siege, Benny. That is our party. That is our movement. That is God being under siege. That's our Constitution being under siege. That's our American flag being under siege. That's the family unit in this country being under siege.
Yes.
That's our democracy being under siege. Everything that we love, everything that we fought for. It's every one of those college kids that's indoctrinated. It's all of them being under siege. It's the revisionist history that they teach in our schools. It's that being under siege. And honestly, if the book came out a day later, I would have included the chapter on Charlie because there is no better example of all of us being under siege, exactly what I write about so granularly in this book, than what just happened to our dear friend. And so, St. Jude has always been kind of the biggest charity and calling in my life. I fought for kids with pediatric cancer my entire life. They tried to kill me because of it. I want to take a nice part of the proceeds of this book, and I want to invest that in Turning Point, because here's what you and I and all the other people can never allow happen. We cannot allow his mission, to ever die. It won't. We will never allow them to take us off the stage because that's exactly what they want. They want us to be Joe Biden. They want us to hide in the basement, right? I've been on that stage. You've been on that stage. You're on that stage every day. I'm on that stage every day. Charlie was on that stage every day. My father's out there every day. So is Don and so many incredible people in this movement. They don't want us to stand on that stage. And that's why they're shooting rifle rounds at us from rooftops. The same time as if we don't stand on that stage, we don't have a damn chance. If we didn't stand on that stage, Benny, Hillary would have steamrolled us. You know why? Because she had $1.5 billion in funds and we had freaking nothing. We were self-funding a campaign out of our back pocket. Us standing on that stage was the only reason my father won in 2016. Us having an impassioned voice and heart and fighting as a family unit was the only reason we won. And that's why they're taking pop shots at everybody, because they want to see us disappear. The reality is they're not going to make us disappear. The reason they're not going to make us disappear is this kind of stuff only further solidifies and concretes and epoxies this movement. It solidifies the movement because everybody realizes that we're on the side of love and God and righteousness. And these lunatics on the radical left are on the side of absolute anarchy, hatred, and destruction of our nation. And so I want to take a nice set of proceeds from this book of all the sales, and it's going to do tremendously well. It's already right at the top in 2 days of Amazon. And I want to donate it back in honor of our friend, back to Turning Point. And literally, I came up with this idea as I was walking to the studio right now, and I texted it to you. And he deserves it, man. That guy, you can't replace him. You just can't replace Charlie. And I know I'm being long-winded right now, but somebody asked me the other day, Benny, who replaces Charlie? And I shook my head. It's like, at first he was an unbelievable character, right? But there's certain characters out there. But then he had the wisdom, the smarts. But then he had the following. He had the gravitas. You can't create gravitas. You either have it or you don't, right? And but yet he loved politics and the fight so much that it was kind of his hobby as well, right? You saw it. I mean, the guy works 7 days a week. Plus, you have to be able to connect with the youth. Plus, you have to be able to run a massive organization. Plus, you have to be able to fundraise. It's like an impossible combination, right? It's if you're a headhunter, like it's a unicorn combination that really only Charlie had. I don't care where in the world I was. I could be on a ranch in Texas, or I could be building a skyscraper in Chicago. And I saw Charlie. It was like the guy was everywhere. It was like Mr. Deeds. He was just, that guy wore through shoes because he worked so damn hard fighting for what we all believe in. And that's why we have to honor him. And so Under Siege, my story that I put my heart and soul into over the last 2 years just came out. And I want to donate a really nice part of this book in Charlie's memory to Turning Point. And he epitomizes everything that I write about right here.
What a poignant and wonderful way to remember his legacy. Again, Turning Point USA, link in the description. Now is the time to sign up and cement Charlie's legacy. It's what Charlie would want us to do, is to continue his work. He's laid the foundation. He's built the single most valuable youth activism group in the world. There is no comparison in any nation, anywhere. And now we pick up the mantle. Now we carry forward this that Charlie has so nobly advanced, to the point of giving his life as an American martyr, a Christian martyr, dying, doing what he loved, spreading light into the darkness. Eric has appeared with Charlie so many different times, and now we've seen in this press conference, Eric, what struck Charlie down. It was left-wing radical, Antifa, political activism. The shooter described how Charlie Kirk was spreading hate and how Charlie Kirk was too divisive to be on the campus, and then inscribed, "Hey, fascist, catch." Now, the term fascist, of course, commonly used to describe you, your family, your father, probably appears in your book many times. Now that we have this confirmed, Eric, I want to get your reaction to the political assassination of the generational leader, Charlie Kirk.
How does this kid, I mean, first of all, you read him, you watch him read the fact that he got this great scholarship and everything. He's going off to college, and his college is paid for, his education is paid for at a great school. He's got his entire life ahead of him. What's he so angry about? Like, I can't get there. I can't get there in my soul, right? It's, God, this young kid that had his entire life ahead of him, if he just challenged, channeled his energy in the right way. And it boggles my mind what and the irony of him calling Charlie a fascist and hateful and evil, and yet he's the guy with a 30-06 on top of a roof 200 yards away from a gathering where people are smiling and having fun and cheering and celebrating the greatest nation that God's ever created. I just have such a hard time wrapping my head around all of it. And does he think that those people, as they watch a bullet hit our friend, like, does he think that that's going to convert those people to become, Democrats the following day? Oh, the guy on the roof, he must be right. His political ideology must be right. No, of course not. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Again, all that does is just take the amount of people you see online right now and say, hey, I was a Democrat, and I was barely holding on, and I was trying to hold on, and I was just hoping the party. And honestly, I switched party because this is insane. Benny, the bullets are only going one way in this country.
Yes.
I saw my father. I was watching with my two children on my lap. One of them's 8th birthday is today. He was 6 at the time, when a bullet nearly took out my father's head. Right? Then I got the call And I drove 50 yards away from the guy as he was getting arrested, Thomas Cook, on 95. My best friend arrested the guy who tried to assassinate my father the second time. I write about it in the book. We were literally, a big hobby of mine is actually shooting. We were shooting together. My buddy was a sheriff in the Palm Beach SWAT. He was part of the Palm Beach SWAT team. He was driving south on 95. We had just left each other. And my best friend was the guy who arrested the second guy who tried to kill my father as I drove by him with the guy's hands out the window. And then we see what happened to Steve Scalise. And then we see what almost happened to Kavanaugh. And then we see what happens to Charlie Kirk. I mean, the bullets are only flying one way, and yet I get to hear the nonsense, and I get to watch all these networks every night, post tweets from Nancy Pelosi about, how deeply sorry she is. Yet, when Laura Burbey, proposed the prayer on the floor of the House, they laughed. And yet we get to see these nonsense tweets get posted by every network. I'm sick and tired of it. We're all pissed. You're pissed. Everybody's pissed. We're sad. We're angry. But what is it? I mean, how is it that the decorum is only going one way in this country, and yet we're the ones that are labeled as the fascists? Isn't that kind of ironic? Hey, the Republicans in this country are generally the ones that have the guns. We're the ones that believe in the Second Amendment. They're not doing the shooting.
There was data that, ALX, will you please grab it? I saw it. Yes, it's on my timeline right now. Remarkable data that said something like 80% of Republicans say that there is no circumstance upon which you should celebrate somebody's death. And only 30% of Democrats had the same take. It's like the clearest data I've seen yet, Eric, to the radicalization and dehumanization that has happened. And this is going to be my charge, is going to be going directly at that. Because there were people celebrating your father getting shot. I mean, some of the biggest celebrities in the world, some of the biggest music acts in the world were saying we need better shooters when your dad got hit in the head with a bullet. And this data proves perfectly exactly what we're facing here. There is a inhumanity and a darkness on the left that celebrates the death of people on the right. It does not go the other way.
Benny, I couldn't come to grips with it. But you know what? If you saw the purple-haired, 16-year-old girl who was, confused in life and, threw up some stupid, comment on Facebook, I could maybe kind of somewhat compartmentalize that the person was young and naive and didn't understand the world and misguided and probably had terrible parents and a lot of other things. I can maybe get there. When I watch TMZ and they're reportedly all laughing in the middle of a section after Charlie got killed, educated people with careers in the mainstream media who are grown-ups, who function in everyday society, who have real jobs, honestly, I cower. I just can't believe that's the United States of America. I mean, the only thing that matters in the world is preserving life and preserving happiness and preserving family.
Yes.
And, as I watch blood shoot out of the front of my friend's neck, you have grown-ups. They came out and said that that's not what they were like, but it was clearly, timing-wise, I think was clear as day based on watching that video.
Yep.
And you have grown-ups at major networks cheering it. I mean, hey, I'm a God-fearing person, as was Charlie, more so than maybe any of us, as are you. Hey, these people are not going to the promised land. That much I can tell you. Like, they are not going to the promised land if that's how they act. When a beautiful, innocent, nonviolent person who loved God, loved this nation, loved family, loved his wife, loved his children, takes a bullet to the neck from some sociopath. Those people are not going to a good place. That much I can tell you.
The sociopath who was clearly radicalized from what looked like a very normie upbringing, hunting, fishing, and so on, and then took a very dark and radical turn, also posed in a very peculiar Halloween costume. I don't know what to make of it. I wanted to just toss it up on screen. He dressed as President Trump not too long ago. I think this is just a few short years ago. And in an inflatable Halloween costume of your father carrying him on his shoulders. What happened here, Eric? You've seen so much of it, and you've seen so much radicalization against your family. What do you think happened here?
Well, I'm kind of curious what she has on her back. I don't know what that is. Is that a rifle? Because it certainly looks like a slung rifle to me, and I'm
yeah,
or a sword or something.
They have a come from a hunting family. The family hunts and does outdoor activities together, and so yeah, this is a toy long gun.
Isn't the irony, Benny? Like, isn't the irony of all of this is like, like he won this whole movement. He converted the minds and hearts and souls of all of these people, and yet maybe the last to not convert were the ones who had to inflict pain on him because he realized he was winning. Like they had lost the argument. And so,
yes,
which he had said so often, when somebody loses the argument, they resort to violence. Like they had lost the argument. And by the way, so had academia in the United States of America. Like academia and these teachers and the wokeness, they had lost the argument. They had lost it with students. They had lost it with parents. The only people that were holding on were, a small group of tenured faculty. But other than that, they had lost the argument, and yet the last to convert realized, having lost the argument, that they would just do what Charlie always said that they did when they lost an argument, which was resort to violence, which was one thing that Charlie never did. He just won the argument based on the merits of just being on the right side of the argument, which is first and foremost, but also then just being smarter and better read and everything else. And it's just unthinkable to me. It's
maddening.
Unthinkable.
There are too many similarities to ignore between Thomas Matthew Crooks and now the shooter Tyler Robinson in Utah, and it's just very strange. I don't know if there's any update. We still know maddeningly little about the man who shot your father in the head and killed a member of the MAGA movement. Maybe you could just explain, is there anything further that your family has been briefed on? Do we know anything more? Do you see any eerie connections? How would you engage in stopping this, Eric?
Benny, I write about this a lot in Under Siege because I am not satisfied. And, I write about a lot how my father is actually one of the most patient people you've ever met. And, for a whole host of reasons, he said that he's been satisfied by the explanations. And it's probably the first time in my adult life where I just respectfully disagree. And he's got a different set of calculus clearly than I do as a son. National security concerns, a whole lot of other things that all play into understanding the intel behind the scenes, but yet being able to compartmentalize somebody who tried to extinguish your life. I'm not satisfied, Benny. And I'm not satisfied because, honestly, the FBI was able to get into the phones of every single, 70-year-old lady who walked through the Capitol and took a selfie and destroyed their lives, yet we have one picture of the Butler shooter. We have one, right? I mean, he was cremated, 5 days later? 7 days later? Most family pets aren't cremated in that period of time, yet the guy who tried to extinguish the 45th and very soon to be 47th president, were cremated within days? Never able to get into his multiple phones? No other picture of the guy was ever reported. We know more about the guy from Guatemala who got deported last week than we know about the guy who tried to take out my father. Now, does anybody actually believe if that was the opposite way around? Let's put any other Democrat in there. Do you really believe that the lack of transparency would have been as great as it was here? I'm not freaking satisfied. And I talk about that a lot in Under Siege. We deserve answers. We deserve to know who these people are. We deserve to know what's on their phone. And yet, everybody lawyered up. There was a big clash between all the law enforcement agencies. I know this because the Palm Beach County Sheriff down here is a good friend of mine, in terms of crooks. And obviously, it was partially their jurisdiction. And he tried to get everything, and they wouldn't give him anything. And everybody lawyered up, and everybody got subpoenaed, and nothing was said. And they let time, fade this into oblivion including by a mainstream media who didn't want to talk about it because it didn't work for their narrative. I'm not satisfied with who the Butler shooter was. I'm not satisfied by anything that we yet know about this Florida shooter, albeit at least he's on trial. So we'll start to piece it together based on the fact that there actually is real journalism in this country, and that is you, right? That is independent voice like Benny Johnson and other podcasts, which are the only ones who will actually pick this apart, and actually talk about the messages that were written on these shell casings, because you better believe ABC and CNN and NBC, it won't make a minute of their time because they're dishonest and it doesn't fit their political narrative. But no, Benny, I'm not satisfied at all. I think there's been a huge injustice that's been done. We know so little about these people. And I can tell you, as a son and as a guy who stood on that stage every day and as a guy who's fought the very siege that I write about in this book, you better believe I want answers more than anybody.
What accountability does the media have, who constantly call you and your family fascists, dictators, Hitler, and then they know that they're messaging to mentally unstable people and weak people and people who are not of right mind? They're lunatics. And they know that what that messaging is saying is you could be a hero. You have nothing else going on in your life. You have no children. You have no chance of happiness. You could be a hero if you just killed Hitler. And as the little we know about Thomas Matthew Crooks, that was where he went. You can read some of his messages on other Discord and other servers. And that style of language radicalized him. Same thing here. Catch, fascist. This individual is radicalized against Charlie Kirk by all of the slanders and libels that they used against Charlie. That messaging is distinct, and it is, in fact, a call to violence. I think they know what they're doing, and they do it to your family every single day. Just thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it's ironic that he used a German rifle called a Mauser K98, right? To extinguish Charlie's life, yet he's the one calling us fascist. I mean, it's just like the great irony that he uses a German military rifle, right? And yet he's the one that's calling us Nazis and fascists. I mean, I'm having a really tough time with this one. I mean, but yeah, I mean, they used to call us Nazis. They used to say that, our family hated Jewish people. It's kind of ironic considering how hard I fight for Israel and how, the fact that 80% of the employees of my organization are Jewish, and probably 50% of my best friends are Jewish, and my sister's an Orthodox Jew. And yet, I mean, they'd say this about my father. They'd say this, they used to say that my father was a sexist. Well, I mean, that's kind of interesting considering his first campaign manager, I believe the first female campaign manager ever for a winning presidential campaign. You know who that was? That was Kellyanne Conway. I mean, so he's so sexist that his campaign manager, the first term, happens to be a female. And then wait a second, Susie Wiles, his second campaign manager, guess what? You know who she happens to be? A female. But yet Donald Trump is so, I mean, it's infuriating when they throw these talking points out. There's nothing to substantiate them. It's how they label you. But Ben, you know this. I mean, long before any of this stuff, this was one of the first talking points. I mean, they always played identity politics. They always did this crap. And you know what? This whole country caught on to it. Like, the identity politics actually doesn't work anymore.
Yes.
You know why? Because in 2024, not only did we win the popular vote, but we won every single swing state. We won Miami-Dade, a county that literally hasn't been won in 37 years, never been won by a Republican. We won Miami-Dade by 11 points. So we won the Hispanics, we won the Venezuelans, we won the Cubans, we won the African Americans, we won. I mean, we won the youth vote, we won the female. I mean, we won everything across the country. And by the way, one other really cool statistic. There wasn't a single state in the country that tacked more blue. They all tacked red, right? And so clearly the identity politics isn't working because it's the only thing that they ever ran on. And it's failed horribly. I mean, it's failed absolutely horribly. So when I see these guys engraving, 30-06 rounds, taking a knife and trying to inscribe, I mean, the fascist remarks, I just find it so wholly ironic, again, given this is the guy who's sitting on the roof of a building with a German rifle, taking shots at people who love our nation and our flag and our Constitution and our way of life. I mean, I just very tough for me to get there, Benny. And I'm and I'm an open mind.
It's unspeakably evil, and I know that you've decried it, and I want to just ask, you have the ear of some very, very powerful people. You have some very powerful friends. Kash Patel, one of our mutual friends, was up on screen. What do you want to see happen here, Eric?
Yeah.
I mean, it can't continue spiraling like this. It spirals like this into like sectarian violence, into a failed state, into a zero trust society. Like, it can't continue. Yeah. Some hammer must be dropped. What would you like to see happen?
Well, we can't allow it to spiral. I mean, we can't allow it to spiral. And by the way, and that's how we win, and that's how we honor Charlie's life, by not allowing it, to spiral. It's I don't think you would ever want to see this side spiral. It would be the worst thing that could ever potentially happen for this country. And we need to be the people who put our faith in God, who put our faith in the Constitution, who put our faith in the United States of America, and fight for a society that we love. We need to bring the family unit back. You know what? I really, anything's possible in life, but I really question how many of these problems could be solved if you had greater faith in life, and you had greater parents in life who were more engaged with their children and had more direction. I don't believe that the first sign that this guy could do something as horrible as, what happened 2 days ago was 2 days ago. There were probably warning signs, right? I mean, I could say that with almost perfect confidence that there are warning signs, and you would hope society would wrap these people, hold these people, hug these people, support these people, and make sure that they aren't a danger to others, and put up the red flag if they were ever going down that road, or they ever saw the signs that somebody was going down that road. And so, listen, I think we need God. I think we need church. I think we need family. I think we need community. But that's getting broken apart every single day. I mean, you have more and more. You've got so many families that are, females that are encouraged not to have children. Society is almost doing that indirectly. You have more single people than ever before. You have more social pressures than ever before. Traditional norms are being broken down in so many devastating ways. Clearly faith in this country is being broken down. You saw that during COVID, as they were keeping people out of, you could go to your local pot store, in Colorado, but you know what? You couldn't go to the gym. Like, I mean, isn't that ironic? You could go to the liquor store, but you couldn't go to church. Benny, I call bullshit, right? And that's what's happening. But, the media allowed that to exist. The media allowed that to happen. In fact, they were complicit in this whole thing. And so we need to rewrite the ship. And I think we've already done so much of that. Let me give the positive side of this. The mainstream media is dead. Laura Trump goes on Fox News on a Saturday night, which is normally known as like Death Valley, right? And she has 2.6, 2.7 million people watching her, right? If CNN in the middle of the week on a Thursday at 9 o'clock gets like 500,000 people, they're doing great. What does that tell you, right? Why does your show do as well as it does? Why did Charlie Kirk's show do as well as it does, right? Why did Dan Bongino? Why were all these guys? Why is Joe Rogan winning? You know why? Because it's independent voice, and people are sick and tired of being spoon-fed. And so the power of the media has faded. The power of, the editorials has faded. Common sense, the pendulum has swung. If you went back 2 years, the pendulum was all the way to the left. And now the pendulum has swung so dramatically, right? DEI is dead. Woke is dead. Transgender swimming, in men's swimming and women's sports in college, it's dead, right? Having no physical fitness standard in the United States military, it's dead, right? The pendulum is swinging back, and that's beautiful. And with that pendulum, I think we're going to get more faith. I think we're going to get more family, and I think we're going to get more humanity.
Yeah. Now, I want to end on a bright note, and I want to thank you for taking us there, Eric. And the bright note is this: a story about you and Charlie. And then, of course, I want to toss to you for something personal. We've done this with every guest. We've been bringing on Charlie's closest friends, business partners, the people who knew him the best, many times working behind the scenes. Charlie Kirk went sprinting to me one day in what we called his home, which was the Trump Hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C., where Charlie was ubiquitous. And he was just like his living room. He just lived there. And he goes sprinting up to me and he shows me this photo on his phone. This one, but then it's a sequence where the two of you stand back to back. Here we go. And this is about who's taller. And I guess it's a Rorschach blot test because it's like, I don't actually know here. But he was so proud, and you're a really tall dude, Eric. He was so proud that he was, fighting you as to who's the tallest here. And he was so full of life. This was such an interesting battle for him. This was something that was so unique for him. And just the way that Charlie approached everything, which was full of vitality and energy and love and good humor. And watching his life, of course, was kind of like watching a miracle. It was almost like watching prophetic, something, the hand of God in the real world. It was prophetic what he was able to accomplish in 31 years. Many men 100 years old won't come close to what Charlie was able to accomplish in 31. And so that's my humanizing Charlie Kirk story. And I want to give you the floor to just recall something about Charlie, his life, a message, and what he would want, how he would want us to carry forward now.
So the first time we ever did this, Charlie and I always did this. You know, who's taller? Who's taller? And I don't know. Charlie, I love you to death. I know you're looking down on Benny and I right now and everybody listening, but I think I got you in this picture, honestly. Like I'm gonna go back to my desk. I'm gonna go draw a little. So buddy, I love you, but I think I have you in this one. But you're taller now, my friend. You know, that was I'll never forget. He calls me up, and my alma mater is Georgetown. You know, it's one of the best schools anywhere in the world. It's also probably one of the most woke. It probably fell Washington D.C. You know, obviously fell to the mob over the period of time, and it's a wonderful school. It's a wonderful place. I loved it, but Charlie goes, let's go back to Georgetown. I'm like, all right, hey, listen, there's a lot of places we can fight, but like, do we really want to fight in Washington, D.C.? It gets us nothing from a vote standpoint. It gets us, he goes, no, let's go back. We'll just have the greatest time. So I'm like, I'm in. So Charlie and I go back. It was set up by the Young Republicans Club. There was like 14 of them. We go showing up in this auditorium. The auditorium is packed. And within, I think the second I open my mouth, all these shirts come off. They're all wearing these like, you know, orange resist shirts or something. And they go walking out of this auditorium, but they didn't make any noise. It was so funny. They did it like silently. And Charlie literally stands up and I stand up and we both look at each other and we start laughing and we go, in the history of protest, that was single-handedly like the least energetic, you know, least impressive protest ever. And the rest of the audience goes absolutely crazy. And so here we are in the middle of Georgetown's campus, Washington, D.C. It kind of proves my point that Charlie would fight anywhere, anytime, anyhow, at any school, right? I mean, you would think it would be better to go to Penn State and fight on those campuses, right? Because the state that you're actually trying to win, right? I mean, you're not winning Washington, D.C., right? You're not winning against this liberal academia at the time, but he didn't give a damn, Benny. Everywhere he'd go, he wanted to change one mind at a time. He always went into the kind of the lion's den. And I took that first picture at Georgetown. I'll never forget that in the back of my former, obviously my alma mater. And we probably did that 20 times since. And he's a wonderful guy. He's a wonderful friend. And I bet he's looking down laughing right now. I truly do.
What a beautiful tribute.
Yeah.
And I know that we'll have many over the next week or so as we remember Charlie Kirk. I just want to remember Charlie Kirk and maybe give you the last word here, Eric, given how you know him so well. What does Charlie want us to do moving forward? What is his charge to us? What would be his message today, Eric, in closing?
Continue fighting for this country, continue fighting for family, and continue fighting for God. Very simple.
Ladies and gentlemen, a family that fights harder than any that has ever lived in America, the Trump family. Under Siege is the book by Eric Trump, who broke the news today that he will be donating a considerable portion of the proceeds of this book to Turning Point USA in honor and memory of Charlie Kirk, and being there for his family, his beautiful Erica, and their two beautiful children. We are going to gather around Charlie and his family. We're going to protect them. We're going to make sure they want for absolutely nothing. And we're going to make sure that they are protected by prayers, most especially. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Trump right here on social media on X. You can follow him. He has 6 million subscribers, of course, you know Eric Trump. His book is available live now, yes?
Live now on Amazon.
All
Go
right.
to Amazon, everywhere else.
Here's the link. And here's the link, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Ben.
Eric. That was poignant and beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks,
Godspeed.
friend.